Hey everybody, and welcome back to Split Couch Games. I'm Scott.
And I'm Ben.
And this is Couchcast number 53.
Woo!
And it's the return of Skyrim to the channel.
Yeah, because that doesn't happen enough. I'm sure. I was gonna say I'm sure some people actually believe that, but you know,
I'm sure like some people are like, I subscribe for Skyrim. Give me the Skyrim.
Yeah, and then
here it is.
Yeah, here's some Skyrim for you, because our topic of conversation today is about Skyrim, about a specific mod, and about our thoughts on the future of the Elder Scrolls franchise as a whole. I
have those.
What?
I have those.
Have those what?
Thoughts.
Oh.
About the future.
Okay.
Never mind.
Anyways,
just a joke. Never mind.
So we'll start with talking about the mod, which is a mod for Skyrim, obviously. It is PC only. I am fairly certain it will never make its way to consoles.
I can't imagine that it would.
Yeah, because I haven't really looked into what it requires, but I can only imagine that it definitely requires lots of extra third-party stuff that isn't actually...
And enabling what it enables would break the SRB rating pretty hard.
No, it wouldn't.
Sure it does.
Nope. You want to know why? Same reason every time you boot up a game with online functionality, it says ESRB rating.
Well, sure.
Or that online interactions are not rated by the ESRB. Anyways.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So
they would have to change something on their end, I think. They would have to put that message in. Maybe.
I don't know. Anyways,
I don't know.
It doesn't,
Anyway,
doesn't matter. The mod that we're talking about is one that enables a co-op and or PvP within Skyrim. And right now I believe it's in like early alpha stages, but there is a playable version of it out that, you know, certain Skyrim YouTubers have access to and everything, because the mod author shared it with them. And it may even be public. I'm not entirely sure. The only reason I say that is because ESO did actually, and he's a YouTuber, not Elder Scrolls Online, but a YouTube. Anyways, ESO actually said that, you know, like he's gonna hold a thing where like you can come and play with him. So I don't know if maybe he has access and was given permission to distribute it, or if there is some place that the essentially alpha, beta, whatever version is publicly accessible.
What's the name of the mod?
The name of the mod, at least as far as I could find, is called Skyrim Together. I couldn't find any sort of link or information on the Nexus page, so it may not actually be up on the Skyrim Nexus yet. But we're also not the only video or news source, if you will, that's talking about this. You know, there's a Kotaku article and everything like that. There's plenty of other YouTube videos that have begun talking about it and that kind of thing. But like I said, you know, it brings co-op adventuring to Skyrim, which is pretty amazing. Like it has on Activate events that sync up between the players. So, you know, like if you and I were playing together, you could be playing, you know, like a sneaky rogue type, and then I can be playing like a, you know, a big warrior tankish type or something. And you could pick the lock on a chest, and then it unlocks that chest for everybody like in your party. So
nice.
You know, there's a lot of parity that they've already worked out. One of the biggest things that they're still trying to tackle in terms of gameplay elements and everything is that the player death in Skyrim, obviously, normally, you know, if you die, you would just reload your last save, but you can't do that when it's a multiplayer session, obviously. So right now, it just marks your character as, I think it marks it as vital or necessary or whatever. So basically, instead of dying, you just kind of like collapse on the ground like a story NPC. So you don't die, like you just fall on the ground, you can't really do anything, and you slowly regenerate some, you know, health and stamina and everything, and then you get back up and continue fighting. The mod authors are like currently looking for feedback and that kind of thing to help make death a little more scary. Because I can only imagine that instituting some sort of system where, you know, it's like, oh, you die, so you go back to like the last town or something would probably be very difficult. Especially taking into consideration that at that point, like, you would have to have like several just chunks of the game loaded at any given time, which, I mean, maybe they have to do that anyways. You know, I don't know a lot of the intricacies behind it, but like I said, they are working on you know, having some player feedback and everything to help make death a little more scary, you know, like maybe some huge debuffs or something for every time you die. I don't know. They're looking into it, because that's pretty much the biggest problem that they have as of right now. Everything else seems to work, you know, pretty well. And I believe there is some sort of rudimentary difficulty scaling, so that, you know, like if you go into a dungeon with like 6 people, I think they make it so that the guys in there are harder to kill, or there's more of them or something like that. I'm not 100% sure on that. I can't quite remember if that was something that they currently have or something they were working towards. But yeah, I mean, I've seen some videos of it and everything, and it looks really, really cool. And, you know, as far as I can tell, it plays pretty well given the state that it's in and everything. So it honestly kind of excites me, but also makes me wary of the future, just because Bethesda has obviously kind of come out and it effectively stated that the next Elder Scrolls game is a ways out. So my guess is probably like at least a minimum of 3 years from now, if not more. And part of that was, you know, according to the developers, you know, they were saying that part of the reason for that is because the game that they want to make isn't currently possible with the tech that's available. And I don't know if that means that, you know, obviously PC would be able to handle it, but consoles can't. And since, you know, PC elitists aside, like, they do have a massive market in console development for their games, so they can't ignore that. So I don't know if maybe they're waiting for like the next generation of consoles or something before they make it. I don't really know. But I feel like at this point the community has proven that it is possible, and it kind of makes me almost want to say that it should be a requirement going forward. Because, I mean, I know that the Elder Scrolls games have obviously always been, you know, like a single-player open-world experience, but I feel like I'm not alone in saying that I would pretty much kill for, like, an open-world cooperative RPG. It's kind of an untapped market. I mean, there are obviously plenty of games out there that are open-world and cooperative and everything like that, but for the most part, anything that even comes close to like the Skyrim type of open world, I don't feel like has actually been achieved. In the past, there were games like Two Worlds, which I never really got into, but I heard that they were pretty bad because of a lot of game-breaking bugs, and the co-op aspect didn't work out. And obviously we had, you know, games like Fable 3 that had, you know, co-op, and it was an RPG, and it was, I don't want to say open world, but it wasn't exactly like linear either. But even then, like, those were so limited in the cooperative potential. And I feel like if they actually, you know, went into, you know, the Elder Scrolls 6 with the idea of, like, we're gonna make it cooperative, that they would be able to make a pretty great product, and it would set a precedent for other RPGs in the future.
Yeah. I don't know if it's necessarily a like a requirement at this point. It's obviously something that like I really want. But when you do that, you run the risk of putting too many resources into making that a thing.
Sure.
And maybe like balancing the game around that and like ruining the single player experience for those that just want the single player experience.
Yeah.
So it's a choice that the developers have to make on a case by case basis. But I mean, we've seen Grand Theft Auto Online is a pretty large map that is completely open for everyone at any given moment. Like there's no loading into instances or anything like that throughout the entire map.
Yeah.
Except like you can like load into buildings and stuff, and that requires loading a new instance. But like, if you're just running around the world, it's all there. So like, I think that technically that's possible. I think the world of Skyrim is probably bigger than Grand Theft Auto is.
I don't think so, but that kind of gets into arbitrary measurements.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. Because, I mean, like, realistically, you know, I don't really feel like they're comparable. But that's kind of...
Well, I mean, I think that, like, the
topic.
big thing is that, like, Skyrim has to deal with, like, enemies and, like, a bunch of different enemies. Because Grand Theft Auto, like, their AI is people walking around, some police officers, and maybe a couple other things here and there.
Yeah, but realistically,
Skyrim has...
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, like I feel like the big difference between like the open world of GTA and the open world of Skyrim is simply complexity. Because I mean, like you were saying, you know, there's a large variation of enemies and AI, different silent events that can happen and that kind of thing. In Skyrim, whereas with GTA, it's pretty much like you have your civilian AI and then your like police AI, and that's it.
Yeah.
And in terms of the bipeds, it's really the exact same character models and that type of thing.
Yeah. Just
with a different skin. Whereas, you know, like you can't really use like the same type of physics and that kind of thing that you have for a frostbite spider as what you do with a dragon. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that like it's the same, but
yeah,
like everything kind of like is set up to make it happen.
Yeah, and I also feel like the scale is different, and maybe that's just simply because like Grand Theft Auto in my mind is always played from third person, so everything's pulled out a little bit more, as opposed to Skyrim, which I pretty much always play in first person. So I don't know.
I think part of that is also there's planes and cars and stuff that like makes traversing the map a lot easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like you said, that's arbitrary measurements. And then on top of that, like all the battle royale games where you can get like 100 people in to a single match kind of shows that like networking is completely possible.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think like, you know, Skyrim would need, you know, 100 people in there. Do it with, you know, 6.
Yeah. But I mean, the main thing that I was trying to get at is, because I mean, obviously, like you said, the biggest concern with like bringing co-op to a game like The Elder Scrolls is going to be designing for that single player experience, but offering co-op, but also not having co-op trivialize it. And that's why I was saying, like, I feel like if from the get-go they said this is a thing that we want, they would be able to design around that.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously what we're talking about isn't easy, and I know you said that with the existence of this mod that this isn't necessarily like a requirement and it shouldn't be viewed as such. But I was just simply talking about like from the fans' perspective. There is a lot that the modding community for Skyrim has done over the years.
Yeah.
that, especially like the super hardcore Skyrim fans, they are going to expect some of those bullet points to be hit. And that may be an unfair expectation. It may not be. I mean, it all honestly just kind of depends on how you want to look at it. But personally, since we are looking at a much greater gap between installments in the franchise than what there has been previously, I don't necessarily feel like those expectations are completely irrelevant. Because in the past, I believe there was about like 4 to 5 years between every Elder Scrolls game. So they had like a pretty nice cadence, because obviously massive open world games with tons and tons to do take a long time to make. But Skyrim came out in what, like 2010, I think?
2011.
2011? Okay. So at this point, we're already at the 6-year mark. You know, if we're talking about another 3-4 years down the road, we're effectively looking at double the amount of time that we're used to. You know, and maybe even more than that. And so if you were to essentially like re-release Skyrim, like obviously, you know, prettier, a little more polished or something like that, but just like, you know, it's Skyrim, but, you know, different location, different story, all that kind of stuff. But in terms of like functionality, it was the same. I don't think people would be happy with that.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. And I'm not trying to say that like let's see. No, I think we can agree that like we want the multiplayer aspect in there. You know, I've said it before, like I don't play a lot of single player games, especially like RPGs, just because I get kind of bored.
Yeah.
But you also know that, like, you know, when you and I played the Old Republic, I was like, I want to play this. I want to keep playing this because, like, it's just fun to have someone there.
Yeah. It's a nice social game.
Yeah. It's a social experience. You're just kind of there. It's like, it's not difficult. And you're just kind of like running around having fun and exploring the world together. And that sounds like perfect for a Skyrim game.
Yeah.
And just, I want that. I really, really want that.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I want that for more games as well. Like, I've always wanted Assassin's Creed to have co-op.
And, like
co-op
real co-op, not like these extra missions that you load into a separate instance of everything, and it's an extremely, like, walled off, you can't go much of anywhere else type of situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, there definitely is a lot of need for that, I feel like. I mean, I feel like the video game medium as a whole has kind of done almost like a 180 compared to what it used to be back in, like, the 90s. Because, I mean, in the 90s, you know, like, there were a lot of co-op experiences, and I mean, like, even into, you know, probably like the early 2000s, there was a lot of variation in terms of like co-op and single player, and then multiplayer was kind of like this thing that some people did but not everybody. And now we're kind of reaching the opposite of that, where like everybody is trying to do these like massive multiplayer experiences, whether it's, you know, something like, you know, The Division or Rainbow Six, where it's competitive, or if it's, you know, something more like the Elder Scrolls Online, where it's like a truly massive, you know, MMO style experience.
Yeah.
And as a result, and I don't know if there are any numbers to back up this trend, but like a lot of like the quality single player experiences and quality co-op experiences are kind of getting left behind. And
I mean, I would say that single player wise, I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think that
it's becoming more and more rare. I mean, realistically, of all of the single player games that I have played in like the last 3 or 4 years, the vast majority of them have always been either produced or published by Bethesda.
Sure. I guess, like, I feel like maybe there's fewer, but there's more, but, like, the quality of them are better, I think. Just from what I've seen. With like,
yes,
a couple of
no.
notable exceptions.
Yeah,
but I feel like the people who are making them are dedicated to making them, so that they might miss the mark, but you can tell that, like, they put the effort in, as opposed to, like, I feel like back in the day there were people who were like, oh, we're gonna make a single player game, and then it was just kind of like, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have a point there.
But what you are right about is that there are a lot fewer games that are, like, built around co-op. Because I remember when we started the YouTube channel and we were doing Let's Plays, we tried to find games that were co-op based.
Yeah, turns out there aren't that many.
It's just, there's not, like, there are games with co-op, but
it's like an element of co-op as opposed to being, like, actually built around the idea of co-op. Yeah.
What's actually interesting is that, like, VR games are where, like, I think the best co-op experiences are. Like the Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, the bomb defusal game. I forget the name of it, but it's a game where, like, one person's in the VR headset and is navigating in a room, and the person has, like, is at the computer and has to, like, point out where the traps are. Like, that's a fun little. But you know, there's just not that many really full experiences. Like, there's a bunch of, like, those, like, little mini games. Like, there's a lot of indie games that are co-op.
Yeah.
That you can, but, like, full on, just, like, meant to be played as co-op are kind of gone away.
Yeah.
Like,
and I mean, that's really kind of unfortunate. I've heard great things about Divinity Original Sin and its sequel. And there have even been some people that I've seen in, like, internet comments and everything that basically say, you know, it's like, if you're looking for a cooperative RPG experience, you know, and for whatever reason you can't do this Skyrim thing or whatever, then to pick up that game. And I feel like that's valid up to a certain point, because not that I expect you to know what I'm talking about, but based off of observations, because I haven't played Divinity yet. I have it, but I haven't played it. It scratches more of the Baldur's Gate type of itch as opposed to the Skyrim type of itch. You know, and those are very, very different experiences. I love them both, but for different reasons. And the type of co-op experience that I want out of a cooperative Skyrim type of game is one where I can, you know, adventure with another person and explore, you know, caves and ruins, and, you know, have skill sets that complement each other and that type of thing. And it would obviously be a tremendous amount of work to make the next Elder Scrolls game a true cooperative experience. I'm not denying the fact that it would be difficult. But I feel like the most successful games in the industry right now are the ones that push that boundary. You know, they're the ones that create new genres, effectively, or take an old genre and do something so completely new with it that it blows your mind. And I mean, even, like, Wolfenstein from 2014, it took a genre that everybody was plenty used to, but kind of in a new way took it back to its roots, because it played very much like a shooter from the 90s. But
and Doom.
Yeah, and so did Doom, but it was in such a fluid, modern way that it still felt natural, but also kind of gave you, like, a little bit of nostalgia. And like, that alone is enough reason to play those games, if you ask me. But I mean, Doom less so, but Wolfenstein specifically was such a fantastic story. I have not played a first-person shooter with such a good story in a very long time, and I haven't since. And I mean, you know, I play a lot of games. I play a wide variety of games. You know that. Yeah. And those types of experiences are what people crave, but there's so much of like this, you know, like we want to be safe type of mentality in game development right now, that there aren't enough companies that have the money that are taking those risks. And that's what we need, I think. Because there are risks that need to be taken, but they require a lot of time investment and a lot of money. And smaller studios don't have that as an option. So typically, if you have a studio that's smaller, that's going to tackle this massively amazing sounding project, it's not going to happen. Or if it does end up happening, it's not going to be polished to the point that it's going to be a crazy success.
Or it's Star Citizen and it's just never going to come out.
Or it's Star Citizen where it's just never going to come out. But I mean, the thing about Star Citizen, I feel, is that like there's enough of it that's out there and playable that people have proof that you know, this is a thing. It is happening. It may still be in progress, but it is coming to a point where there's enough out there for Star Citizen, I feel like, in terms of like playable bits and everything, that people who have put money into it, I feel, are satisfied for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there are people out there that are crazy and they're like, I'm gonna put $10,000 into this, and they're probably a little upset. But I feel like overall there is enough, and there have been plenty of like proven to work gameplay demos that I've seen out of Star Citizen that, I mean, frankly, like, I'm sitting back here like, you know, it'll be great when it comes out. I don't have a computer that run it, and I'm probably never going to play it because it seems like a totally massive experience that I just couldn't get into because I don't have the time. But it looks amazing. But I also feel like Star Citizen is kind of like the outlier in terms of like crowdfunding and everything. Because, I mean, even if you have an amazing project that is crowdfunded, like, I just don't think it ever really will reach the potential that it should. And maybe that's kind of a cynical way to look at it, but
sure,
I've seen plenty of games on Kickstarter and, you know, on Indiegogo that have these grandiose ideas, and they just typically will maybe get the funding they need, but then they fall off the face of the planet, and, you know, you don't hear anything for years and years, and then by the time it comes out, it's like, well, these other guys did something that's pretty similar but higher quality.
Yeah.
And so I think it's kind of to the point where the big developers like Bethesda need to start kind of pushing that envelope a little more. And I mean, they've obviously been doing that with, you know, Doom and Wolfenstein and everything, but I feel like they need to rely on their core franchises like the Elder Scrolls to not so much push the envelope of like making a new genre or anything like that, as much as it is pushing the envelope of the tech that's available.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like, clearly co-op is like it is a thing that can happen. It's just a matter of figuring it out and designing from the, you know, get-go with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, like you said, I think it's almost kind of like super niche, the co-op experience. So, like,
I don't think it's as niche as what a lot of people think, though.
Yeah, but like, it doesn't matter what we think. It matters what, like,
the developers
think.
Yeah, because, I mean,
and because I think that there's plenty of people who, you know, have a friend or two that if you delivered a super awesome co-op experience, they'd be like, hell yeah, I'm totally gonna play that with my friend.
Yeah. And I mean, I personally, like, for me, it doesn't even have to be like split screen co-op. Like, it can be fully online co-op That
I
part,
think it's better that way.
well, yeah, I mean, so do I. But I also understand the people
In
that,
most cases.
Yeah, I mean, I also understand the people that want the split screen experience, though.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even though we have 2 Xboxes and everything, Marcy and I have pretty much always played Borderlands split screen, just because we have more fun with it. And with something like Skyrim, I feel like that would work best in like an online only, like no split screen type of situation.
Yeah.
But I mean, I could be wrong.
I think that's just, it's a more cinematic experience.
Yeah.
Like a lot more things are happening on screen and everything.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, it is kind of a public perception that like co-op isn't really anything that people want anymore.
Well, I don't think like that's not necessarily true. I think it's a lot more like,
that's why I said
everyone
perception.
thinks that it has to be like, they feel like co-op is outdated and that it has to be like, these Division, Destiny, open world-ish.
Yeah, where it's like
console,
this weird kind of like towing the line between an MMO and a single player experience type of thing.
Yeah, so like it's like it's no longer a co-op. Like, you don't describe those games as co-op games, but like that doesn't get like kind of the way that like that's presented sort of forces the the elements that you want from a single player game to get pushed to the wayside a bit.
Yeah.
So like you don't get like the best of both worlds.
Mm-hmm.
You get like the best of the co-op world, but then you just kind of like are losing out on other parts of the experience.
Yeah. And I definitely agree with you there. And that's honestly another reason why I think Bethesda needs to be the one to push for that. Because they are a massive developer / publisher. Like, they have control over what they want to do. I mean, I know that technically their parent company is ZeniMax, but I'm fairly certain that ZeniMax was like birthed out of Bethesda. I could be wrong.
Man, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated thing, really.
I think we went through that at one point, like where that all goes.
Yeah,
but it's like 2 Ks in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's really weird. But I mean, they're a big enough developer, regardless of the publisher relationship with that franchise. They're a big enough developer that I feel like if they pitched it, then with a certain level of confidence, they could actually essentially be given the green light.
Yeah.
And I want it to happen. I want it to happen so bad.
I do too.
Because I mean,
believe me,
honestly, even if it's not Bethesda, I want someone out there to be like, we're gonna make a fantasy open world game that is a cooperative experience. Because like, I would love to like sit down and play with you or Marcy or both or whatever, and basically have like, I could be like sneaking around like picking locks and like shooting people with a bow and arrow, and then like somebody comes kicking in the door with a battle axe or magic or something. It'd be amazing.
It would be really freaking sweet. I just had like this thought, and like the more I think about it, the less fun it is, but I just kind of want to like, don't think about it too much, but I want like a Game of Thrones co-op game set in the Game of Thrones world.
I don't, but that's because I don't care about Game of Thrones.
But you could.
No,
it wouldn't work. Like, don't get me wrong, this absolutely wouldn't work, but it's just gonna be kind of funny. It's just like every like 10 minutes, like one of your team just dies. Anyway, we're coming up on like 35 minutes. So I think we should probably
wrap it up.
But yeah, I mean, like you said, someone has to do it, because I think that like I think like it just comes down to, I want more full co-op experiences that are meant to be co-op. Because like honestly, like it might be like Gears of War 2 is like the last game that I felt was like significantly better as a co-op game, as opposed to just like co-op is tacked on. Because I felt like Gears of War 2, there was enough in there that like having two people made an impact on the gameplay, as opposed to just like having fun with each other.
Yeah, for me,
Halo doesn't do it anymore. Like,
yeah, well, ever since I think Halo 2 was the last one, everything since then has just been like, oh, you have more players? Well, it's the same experience unless you turn up the difficulty.
Yeah. I mean, I think Gears of War 2 had a few moments that made it, like the moment where you're carrying the bomb and you have to like both aim, and like if you turn too far, you turn your teammate too far or whatever.
Yeah, that was fun.
Like, well, yeah, something. And like there's a few like floating on the water and like the boat's turning and stuff, and like you have to adjust for cover and everything, like those kind of moments.
Remember that game that we played with the Kraken or whatever it was?
Yeah, I love that game. You accidentally won. Yeah. But yeah, like, and even then, like, I would say like that's very limited in terms of like the co-op moments. Like there was a few really good ones, but other than that, it was still just a game.
Yeah.
But those moments stand out to me as some of the best.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just, I guess like really Army of Two.
Yeah, I know.
Also probably the last one.
I never played it, but according to you, it was good. But at the same time, I don't know how much I can trust your opinion on that.
No. It was fun.
Yeah, sorry, fun, not good.
Not good,
but fun.
Oh man, the controls in the first one were so bad. So bad.
All right. Well, like you said, we should start wrapping this up because we're quite a bit over now. But you know, for anybody that was intrigued by this topic and or our conversation, like, you know, let us know your thoughts below. Like, you know, if with this mod coming out, do you feel like this is essentially solidifying that Bethesda does need to do something like this? Do you not want it to happen? Or do you want it to happen but maybe not in the Elder Scrolls universe? That kind of thing. You know, let us know your thoughts down below in the comments. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time on Split Couch Games.
Bye.